Oh, welcome back to day 337. I love that I looked at myself and went, I don't have my glasses on. It's like, yeah, why would you? Why would you? I woke up and I was just so frustrated. I was so frustrated because my doctor was supposed to call me back about getting a testosterone shot, but then they were like, oh, I thought you were going to relearn how to do it yourself. So instead, we'll get a nurse to do it. But then they're like, I'll call you back once we could do that. And then they never called me back. So it's like, so then I'm like, okay, so I talked to someone else and they're like, oh, our first appointment for a nurse is on the 28th. And I'm like, 12 days from now. They're like, yes. I'm like, that is a shot, one extra shot. That is the amount of time in between shots. No. So I had just such a bad headache and fluctuating hormone levels. Either taking hormones or getting off hormones can cause headaches and migraines and stuff. And since I already am prone to it, they said that it might trigger more. So I was like, what if I have a headache from that? So that's why I called right away to try to make an appointment for that day, the next day. But then I was like, wait, weekend. And so finally I was talking to a different person and they're like, I asked my supervisor, they can do it if you go to the urgent care in this place, they'll give it to you and it will be fine. I go there, there's a copay, so the front desk lady's like she's like looking down type and she goes, even more. She's you have no one at home or people that can do this for you. And I was like, no. And she's just like, okay, because she's sitting down. But the way that her eyes are just like looked up, like, okay. And I'm like, listen, I guess I tried to ask my sibling, and I was like, hey, can you do this for me? It just is getting worse, my anxiety a bit, and apparently you can sit down, which would be so much better. So shut up, Mark. No, you don't. So anyways, what happened is I'm sitting there, or I'm waiting, and they're like, it's a copay, and I'm like, yep. So I pay the copay, which sucks because usually it's nothing, but now I have a pretty penny gone because America, USA. And then I go in there and he's like, okay, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I need this. And he's like, oh, I can do that easy peasy. So I put my hands down to like my knee on one side. And he's like, yeah, that's all you need to do. And I'm sitting there and he's like, okay, so where did they tell you to put the needle? And I'm like, well, the first lady did it like right up on my hip. And he's like, that's also way too in the center of your leg. It should be on the outside of it, like in the EpiPen shooting area. And I'm like, yes, I have EpiPens in my bag right now. I know that. And he's like, and they didn't tell you to draw back? I'm like, no. And said you can't sit down. I'm like, yes. And he's just like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I did this 12 times. And he's like, are you going to get the nerve up to do it again? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, you can make an appointment with internal medicine, so it's not the same copay, but I don't know how much it would be. And I'm like, I will do that. But dear God, I've had such a bad headache and I wasn't feeling well, and it just would be nice just to have it done. And he's like, got it. So what happened is, he's like, okay, when you're sitting there, and he's like, what you want to do? He gets his hand like this. He puts it over my head down. He goes, that's 1/3, 2/3, and then like 3/3 to where your knee is bent. In that middle third, you want to do it slightly on the outside, where your seam of your pants would be, and he just stabs me. He draws it back, and he's like, no blood, and he gives it so nicely, and I'm like, fair, but here's also the deal. What am I supposed to do? My sister or my sibling or whatever gives it to me, does it wrong, and then what? And then also, because they told me how to do it wrong, if I told them what the nurse told me to do, it would be wrong. So I wonder if it would be better if I gave it to myself. But what I would maybe do is ask if I could do it myself when I'm there, like pay for them doing it, but let me do it to see if I could actually, when I'm sitting there, because like sometimes when I'm sewing, my brain's like, just stick the needle in you. So like, it's not that my brain says no, don't do it. It's that it's so big and it would hurt, because I think I just did it way too high up. I did it farther out than what she did. She did it very close to like almost front, and I'm just like slightly to the side. I'm like, I have a lot more leg on this side, and so and it was great because I'm like, yeah, I need a testosterone shot, and I kept saying testosterone because I didn't know if they know testosterone, because one time I was like, yeah, I need a testosterone shot, and they're like, how do you administer that? I'm like, thigh? They're like, okay. And I'm not saying that's wrong, that they don't know how. I just didn't want to say T, and then they're like, what? Testosterone shot. So he's like, oh, so you have your test shot with you? And I'm like, test? No. T or testosterone? I don't know why. Just calling it a test was so funny to me, because it was like, what? It just threw me. It wasn't like funny, it was just like, what? So he did it so easily, and so when I told my sibling, when I came back, they were like, well, yeah, well, your nurse, Ed, freaking has a nursing degree. And just imagine, like, we do it wrong, and we have to go to the ER and have to explain that we tried to give me a shot, and it was so bad, blah, 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 that I have to go there. And then the nurse has to be like, you idiots, why would you try it? No, I'm going to go there. So I'm going to probably make an appointment with the actual hormone doctor and get it done there, and then maybe ask, try to make an appointment or relearn or whatever. Be like, that is not what they told me. I also think I want to get a little testosterone vial, because it's like literally this big tattoo. And there's a simple little outline, maybe with like testosterone thing on my thigh. Because even if I stop testosterone shots, I did it for 7 months now. 6 of them myself, wrong. I didn't die. It's just, that's what is pretty great about, I guess, the human body. I did all that, and I still am okay. Anyways, the point was, when I first was telling my sibling that I needed it, and I was just like, if the best is in 2 weeks, it's not going to happen. So what happened is, my sibling's like, I guess I can do it, so where's I don't remember, tool, or I don't know what word she used. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, or is it a syringe? I'm like, oh girl, it's a syringe. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's a full-on syringe. So I get my size 22 needle, which is correct. Size 22 needle. I was just worried after all that it was incorrect, but it was correct. Size 22 needle. Bring it over at one of my used ones that's sheathed. And I bring it over, and I'm like, here it is. She looks at it, and she goes, this is big. I'm like, yes. She's just like, in your leg? I'm like, mm-hmm. And then you pull it back. I'm like, uh-huh. And she's just like, and I'm like, yes. And, oh boy, she quickly chickened out like a little bark baby. Little chicken baby. Because, she's like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, I did that to myself for 12 times. so what you're gonna do is stick, no, I'm kidding. I was like, yeah, fair. But I'm just like, she doesn't even want to do that. And I had my, so I wonder if I could do it on my thigh better. Like if I would feel more confident doing that myself on my thigh. Like sitting down, correct place. But I feel like I think I just need some time off not doing that. Because usually I can get my nerve back up in the 2 weeks before doing it myself again. But I was like, no, I can't do it. And then my sister was like, how did the nurse know you lived with someone? I was like, I just assume they either found the whole fam on the insurance, because we all have the same insurance, or B, she just assumed because I'm young, and what am I supposed to live alone in this economy? So, yeah, I don't know, man. Mark realizes there's going to be pee in there, and he doesn't want it, so he washes it down. Anyways, I wonder about the shots, but I'm so glad I did it. I don't care about the copay. I feel so much better. And then we got coffee, and then we're like, wait, I'm supposed to be up at 8 in the morning, and it's 11. It wasn't 11. What time was it? 10 o'clock, maybe 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I could be up at 8 in the morning, but to go do something, but their tickets were sold out anyways, so we're not doing that. Thank God. I'm tired, man. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, when I went to the thrift store, was that 2 weeks ago? Yeah, I guess. 2 weeks ago? Wait, is that how math works? Whenever I went to, week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I don't remember, to the thrift store, there's just, the whole aisle of dresses, but they have regular dresses, and then they have fancy dresses, which will be wedding dresses, prom dresses, but it's great because people just slip those over what they're wearing, and, like, hold it or zip it as much as they can, and just be like, and so you'll just see them in this huge dress just walking to the end cap, turn around and just look in the mirror at themselves in a dress, and then just make some faces and then take it off, and either, I guess, usually or sometimes get it, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I feel really not great. Like yesterday, I felt really bad. So I wonder, or like last night, I wonder what it could be. It freaking sucks. I also have been, I've been so upset that earlier today, I was just like, and I haven't cried in a while. Like, I have just as much emotions. It doesn't bring me to actual tears. Which is so funny because it's just like, yeah, I guess. And I didn't think about it, but I was just so upset earlier. and it was overwhelmingly upset. I had such a bad headache, and I was just about to cry. And one thing goes wrong more, and I would have just started crying. And I don't know if it was just having no testosterone shot for a week, or beginning of the week to end of the week, but I don't know what it was, but I was overwhelmed, and then I had figured out what I was gonna do. I was gonna go in, and it just all settled so quickly that I'm like, that wasn't that hard. We didn't need to get emotional, but I had such a nice extra sugary coffee because I had a coffee from last night, but I only had a really tiny spoon, like really tiny spoon versus a normal spoon, so a really tiny spoon. But it had a kind of a slightly different divot and stuff. So I'm like, how many scoops of this spoon equals a big spoon? Because it was smaller than a half. So I was like, I don't know. So I kind of tried to guess, and then it was like kind of really sweet. So then I'm like, should I add more coffee? But then I don't usually use the carafe of coffee. I usually use my own. So I'm like, we have the carafe of coffee. So I poured it, but that craft is heavy, So I'm like, well, so I'm trying to gauge, like, if I have it tilted sideways, is that enough? Like, would that mean it's half? Like, if you're pouring a cup and it's this way, technically should be half of a cup, right? Right? If you're not right, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the case, because I don't know what the inside of this craft looks like. Because sometimes my family is pouring and they just go like this, and they're like, oh, it's empty. So I'm just like, wait, I don't know. So I'm just like, ugh. Anyways, my sibling chicken out of shooting my leg. Rude. We were going to ask my aunt to do it because she really wants to, but I, no offense, got really scared about that. So, but I might eventually ask her. Want to get tattoos? Yeah. That wasn't something I talked about. I just really want to get tattoos. Well, I did, I guess, kind of, but I just really love tattoos. So I think a little testosterone vial on my leg would be perfect. And then get him maybe touched up, and then get my flower tattoo next to him, like I've been wanting to. I think my skin's dry. He is. Oh, actually, it doesn't look that bad on camera. You look, they're like pale, and you can tell I want like lotion, or I'm really dry if they're so pale. Oh, I had also so many allergies earlier, which did not help with the whole emotional thing. I'm just like dying with snot just in my face, and I'm just like, ugh. Oh, I need to bring up some tissues to my room because I'm out. Anyways, I'm gonna leave now.